Calling the meeting of the Budget and Finance Committee to order. I'm asking all committee members to please put your yellow committee member sign up, and we're going to go ahead and get started. Pursuant to Council Rule 28, the public comment period at committee meetings is limited to items that appear on the committee agenda. We did not have anyone to sign up for public comment, so we will go ahead and go right into our consent agenda. We do have the following items to be considered for consent. RS 2024-704, RS 2024-705, RS 2024-706, RS 2024-707, RS 2024-710, RS 2024-711, RS 2024-713, RS 2024-714, RS 2024-715, RS 2024-716, RS 2024-717, RS 2024-718, RS 2024-720, RS 2024-721, RS 2024-722, RS 2024-723, RS 2024-725, RS 2024-726, BL 2024-516, BL 2024-517, BL 2024-518, and BL 2024-519. Are there any items that anyone would like to pull from the consent agenda? Councilmember Allen, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Can I pull RS 2024-714 just to ask a question?
714. Council Lady Toombs, can she pull? I'm just joking. You said Vice Chair. All good. We'll pull 714 off the consent agenda. Is there anything else that anyone would like to pull? Council Lady Webb, you're recognized.
Thank you. 707.
Okay. 707 has been bumped from the consent agenda. Is there anything else that anyone would like to have pulled from consent? All right, Councilmember Cortez, you're recognized.
721.
721.
It's number 17.
Thank you so much. That has been pulled from consent. All right, anything else? All right, seeing none, I'll go ahead and read the captions of the consent agenda. RS 2024-704, Porterfield, Welsh, Allen, and Gadd accepts a grant from the Tennessee Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services to the state trial courts to provide Tennessee Highway Safety Office recovery court enhancements to existing and new recovery court programs and services to improve alcohol countermeasures. RS 2024-705, Porterfield, Gamble, Welsh, and Gadd approves Amendment 1 to a grant from the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation, Tennessee Historical Commission to the Metropolitan Historical Commission to provide a comprehensive countywide cemetery preservation plan for Davidson County, Tennessee. RS 2024-706, Porterfield, Gamble, Welsh, and others accepts a grant from the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation, Tennessee Historical Commission to the Metropolitan Historical Commission to provide a comprehensive countywide cemetery preservation plan phase 4 for Davidson County, Tennessee. RS 2024-710, Porterfield, Gamble, Welsh, and others approves the First Amendment to a grant contract for constructing affordable housing approved by RS 2022-1857 between the Metropolitan Housing Trust Fund Commission and Living Development Concepts Incorporated. RS 2024-711, Porterfield, Gamble, Welsh, and others approves the Second Amendment to a grant contract for constructing affordable housing approved by RS 2022-1857 between the Metropolitan Housing Trust Fund Commission and Woodbine Community Organization Incorporated. RS 2024-713, Porterfield, Evans, Welsh, and others accepts a grant from the Tennessee Department of Human Services to the Metropolitan Board of Health to conduct immunization record audits for child care centers, drop-in centers, and group child care homes to ensure the safety and well-being of children and families in Tennessee. RS 2024-715, Porterfield, Evans, Welsh, and others accepts a grant from the Friends of Metro Animal Care and Control to the Metropolitan Board of Health to provide funding for emergency medical care for safety net program and the foster program for shelter animals. RS 2024-716, Porterfield, Evans, Welsh, and others approves Amendment 6, 7, and 8 to a Community Health Workers for Public Health Response and Resilient Grant from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention to the Metropolitan Board of Health to address COVID-19 health disparities to the Nashville area. RS 2024-717, Porterfield, Gadd, Welsh, and others appropriates a total of $330,265 from the Nashville Public Library to various nonprofit organizations for the provision of free and high-quality after-school and summer programming through the library's Nashville After Zone Alliance Out-of-School Time Coordinated System, RS 2024-718, Porterfield, Gad, and Welsh, accepts a grant from the Metropolitan Historical Commission Foundation to the Metro Parks Recreation Department to fund the cost of estimated services for at Safama I can't say that, archaeological, sorry y'all, Park Master Plan Implementation, RS 2024-720, Porterfield, Evans, Welsh, and others, approves an agreement between the Nashville Fire Department Emergency Medical Services Division and Volunteer State Community College to provide clinical experiences for students enrolled in Volunteer State Community College Emergency Medical Services Program, RS 2024-722, Porterfield, Evans, and Gad, approves Amendment 1 to a grant from the Tennessee Emergency Management Agency to the Office of Emergency Management to provide resources for hazardous materials, hazmat preparedness. RS 2024-723, Porterfield, Parker, Welsh, and others, approves the application for a strengthening mobility for revolutionizing transportation SMART grant from the U.S. Department of Transportation to NDOT to improve the safety of vulnerable road users along the Nolensville Pike corridor and continue to improve safety along the Stage 1 corridor by deploying sensing, analytics, and interventions to identify safety issues. RS 2024-725, Porterfield, Parker, Welsh, and others, accepts a donation to the Community Foundation of Middle Tennessee to the Metropolitan Government, acting by and through the Department of Water and Sewage Services to fund the composting initiative for Metro Nashville Public Schools. RS 2024-726, Johnston, Porterfield, Gamble, and others, approves a project modification to an agreement between the Metropolitan Government and the United States Department of Army to add 2 parcels related to the acquisition and removal of flood-prone properties in the 7 Mile Creek watersheds. BL 2024-516, Bradford, Porterfield, Evans, and others, an ordinance approving the Second Amendment to lease agreement between the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County and the Nashville Metropolitan LLC for office space at 1281 Murfreesboro Pike. BL 2024-517, Porterfield, approves Amendment 2 to the contract between the Metropolitan Government and InfoSapient Incorporated, InfoSapient, to extend the term and increase the estimated value of the contract. BL 2024-518, Porterfield, Evans, Welsh, and others, approves an agreement between the National Fire Department Emergency Medical Services Division and Vanderbilt University Medical Center to provide clinical education experiences for VUMC house staff and graduate medical education programs. And BL 2024-519, Coupon, Porterfield, Gamble, and others, approves an amendment to restated agreement for a grant of a greenway conservation easement between the Metropolitan Board of Parks and Recreation and Byline Property Owner LLC for greenway improvements between 2nd Avenue North and 1st Avenue North, north of Van Buren Street, and particularly on parcels 0820-501-3400, 0820-501-3900, 0820-501-4000, and 0820-501-3300. Yes. Is there anything else that anyone would like to pull from consent? Seeing none, can I get a motion? It has been quietly moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? The consent agenda passes, 9 in favor, 0 against, and 0 not voting. The first item not on consent is RS 2024-707, Coupon, Porterfield, Gamble, and others, authorizes the Metropolitan Department of Housing Agency to negotiate and enter into a pilot agreement and accept payments in lieu of ad valorem taxes with respect to a multifamily housing project located at 1622 Rosa L. Parks Boulevard, known as Inspiritus. Can I get a motion? Is there a second? It's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Council Lady Webb, you are recognized.
Thank you. I was just wondering, it states on there some of the money's coming out of the operating funds. Can they explain?
Is there someone you are directing the question to in particular? We have MDHA in the back. If you could just introduce yourself, please.
Good evening. My name is Matt Loftus. I am the Assistant Director of Urban Development for MDHA and help oversee the pilot program. So it's not coming out of any operating funds per se. It's essentially just a tax abatement. So the project otherwise would have to pay the taxes that were placed on it by the real estate property assessor. We are pinning those, we're scheduling an in lieu of tax payment for a 10-year period of time, which is outlined in the pilot agreement here. It starts with $24,000 a year, escalates at 3% annually. To note, particularly on this particular parcel, is right now it's tax exempt. So the site is generating $0 annually in property taxes. So there is no property taxes flowing in from this site to the general fund. After the improvements are made, the pilot period will begin, and we will begin charging them a bill of $24,000 a year, and it will escalate marginally from there.
Thank you. Councilmember Webb, did you have any other questions? Okay, are there any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay? Any abstentions or anyone not voting? Motion carries 9 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. The next item not on the consent agenda is RS 2024-708 Porterfield, authorizes the Metropolitan Department of Law to compromise and settle Jonathan Sodd's claims against the Metropolitan government in the amount of $150,000 to be paid from the $3 million allocated by the Director of Finance on March 21st, 2024 for the resolution of matters related to the Arts Commission. Can I get a motion? Is there a second? It has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Parker, you are recognized.
Thank you, Chair, for recognizing me, although I'm not a member of this committee. I just had a couple of questions about this. Like in reading through the complaint that was filed, the plaintiff, there's not a lot of specificity about some of the allegations. And so I wonder, how did we determine that we wanted to settle this? Also, like, my understanding of like a contractor, I mean, even if a prior director had offered like a handshake type deal that you'll get this job in the future, like unless that was in their contract, I mean, I know there's issues with employment and I'm not super familiar with all that law, but a contractor is not necessarily entitled to a full-time position that opens in a department. And I'm just, when I look at this, I don't see read the complaint. I'm not saying like, oh boy, we better settle this here. So could you just explain to us a little bit about the department's approach to this and kind of why you're giving us this recommendation?
Thank you, Councilmember Parker. I'm going to recognize someone from Metro Legal. If you could just introduce yourself, please.
Good evening. I'm Melissa Roberge, and I'm with the Department of Law. You raise a lot of good questions, and please let me know if I don't answer any of them fully. The most concerning claim in the complaint is the failure to hire claim about the grants manager position. So that posting went live in July of 2023, and it was filled in December of 2023. And so his status as a contractor doesn't impact his ability to bring that claim. And Mr. Sad, in the civil service test and scoring, scored a 90. The cutoff score was an 80, so he was qualified, and the person who ultimately got the job had a lower score than him. And so that would raise an inference that there was discrimination. The biggest problem, though, in this case is the person that would justify that decision would be former Director Singh. For obvious reasons, he is not an ideal witness for us. So taken together with the unique circumstances of this case and that our key witness would be largely unavailable to us is what drove us towards looking at an early settlement. Settling now gives us the benefit of not going through the litigation process, not risking a substantially larger award in both back pay and attorney's fees and compensatory damages, and also just helps the arts department keep moving forward.
Thank you. Councilmember Parker, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for that explanation. I guess I understand and appreciate that, that without the other folks who were involved in this situation being present and willing to talk about the situation, it would be very difficult for the Department of Law to defend the case. I understand that, but are we concerned that there are other folks out there who might see this approach being taken by the Department of Law and say, oh well, I'm going to just throw my hat in the ring and see if I can get a quick settlement, because it would be difficult to litigate or difficult to defend because of whatever circumstances it is. It's a director has left, someone has moved, someone's retired, and I don't know. Do you consider this to be unique circumstances related to this case, or should we be a little bit concerned about folks seeing this and saying, "Oh, I'm gonna go file something just to see what might happen"?
Thank
Sure.
you, Councilmember Parker. Legal, you're recognized.
Our default position is almost always to litigate these cases. I'm a litigator in our office. That's what I prefer to do. So I do think that these are unique circumstances. At this time, we're not aware of any other EEOC complaints that have been filed arising out of Director Singh's time. And as each day passes, we get closer and closer to the statute of limitations. So I don't want to promise that there isn't another claim out there, but at this time, we're not aware of it. And we do think that these facts are very unique to Mr. Sad's situation.
Councilmember Parker? Okay. Would anyone else like to be recognized? Any additional discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? Motion carries. Oh, I'm sorry. These are abstentions. Abstentions. Okay. So we have 7 in favor, 0 against, 2 not voting. Okay. The next item is BL 2024-709, Porterfield, Gamble, Weiner, and others. Authorizes grants not exceeding $26,234,615 from the Barnes Fund for Affordable Housing for certain nonprofits for the express purpose of constructing and rehabilitating affordable or workforce housing. Can I get a motion? Is there a second? It's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Council Lady Allen, you're recognized.
Madam Chair, I just need to be recorded as abstaining.
10-4. Councilmember Huffman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. I was wondering if we could hear from Director Hubbard again. She gave a really nice overview about this legislation in the previous committee, and I just had a follow-up question for her once she was done.
Absolutely. Director Hubbard, come on down. Dun, 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 dun. If you could introduce yourself, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Angie Hubbard, Housing Director, Metro Planning. With me is our new Housing Trust Fund Manager, Catherine Middlebrooks. This legislation is part of our Round 13 funding, which is our FY24 allocation, as well as some American Rescue Plan Act dollars. This particular piece of legislation would award grant funds to 13 different nonprofits for over $26 million to create or preserve 912 new homes. Of the 912, 190 of those are owner-occupied rehab, meaning people who are at 80% of our area median income get some home improvements to stay in their home. Most of these are targeted to older adults. The remaining are either new construction for home ownership, which are targeted to people at the 80% AMI level, and then or rental at 60% of our area median income. We have these across 9 different council districts, the owner-occupied rehabs, multiple areas throughout the county. And I mentioned that this is part of our Round 13. So these are 13 contracts. In 2 weeks, we'll come back with 3 more for $11.7 million and 351 more homes. So at the end of all of this in a few weeks, we will have awarded $37.9 million to create or preserve over 1,200 affordable units with operating funds and American Rescue Act plan dollars.
Thank you, Director Hubbard. Councilmember Huffman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick follow-up question regarding the non-council districts. Just hoping you could give us an overview of where those would be.
So in your legislation, the second column from the right lists all the different council districts by each different project. So there's some in Council District 5, 44 home ownership units, 34 rental units in Council District 30, 26 home ownership units in Council District 28, 3 home ownership units, 1 in each of the following districts, 13, 17, and 28. 9 rental units in Council District 6. We have 65 rehab units from Rebuilding Together, which are multiple, and those will actually target the Bordeaux area and areas impacted by the 2023 tornado. We have 184 new rental units also in Council District 6, 62 new rental units in Council District 32, 10 new rental units in Council District 22, 85 homeowner rehab units by the Housing Fund in multiple council districts. These will be 85 units targeted to older adults, 18 new rental units in Council District 17, another home repair program with 40 units for older adults across multiple council districts, and then 232 new rental units in Council District 2.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Just one more follow-up question. What's your timeline look like on this?
These vary. All the contracts have 2-year terms, and some of these are still getting their capital financing, the rest of it together. All of those using American Rescue Plan Act funds must be completed by December 31st, 2026. So they're all in various stages of pre-development. The Housing Trust Fund Commission has adopted a policy to be first money in. So this money helps leverage debt financing or tax credit financing. So they're all in various stages, but we're tracking them. They're evaluated and recommended for funding based on their feasibility for completion within 2 to 3 years.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so very much. Do we have any additional questions? All right, seeing none, all in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? Motion carries 9 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. The next item that's not on. One person not voting, my apologies. 8 in favor. 8 in favor, 0 against, and 1 person not voting. My apologies, Councilmember Allen. Thank you, Director. The next item we have is RS 2024-714, Porterfield, Evans, Walsh, and others accepts a grant from the Tennessee Department of Health and the Metropolitan Board of Health for public safety partnerships in high-impact areas to use available data to identify populations at risk for adverse consequences from substance abuse and employ evidence-based interventions that are responsive to population needs. Can I get a motion? Is there a second? It has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Allen, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Two questions. One, I'd be interested to know what those evidence-based interventions are. And then, since we're on the Budget Committee, how is this funding being leveraged so that it's helping long-term treatment processes happen? Because it seems like it's great to identify the areas, but the real point is to actually treat these people. So what are we doing there?
Thank you, Councilmember Allen. I believe we have someone from Health in the back. If you could identify yourself when you get to the podium, please.
Cabarrus Leach Public Health Department. Could you repeat the questions again, Ms. Allen? I apologize.
Councilmember Allen, you're
No problem.
recognized.
So the first is how are we leveraging the money and what interventions are being employed once the areas are identified?
The interventions they're utilizing the money to do data analysis, essentially. Davidson County, or our health department, is collecting all the data for 5 counties in total around us. I think I have a list of the counties that we're helping out. Robertson, Wilson, Sumner, and Dixon in addition to us. So we're sort of the repository of collecting all of this data. So that's where a lot of that money goes. Our epidemiology department takes that, tracks it, creates spike alerts that we then send back out to the other departments that don't have the capacity to process this data that we do here. the data itself is collected from EMS, from hospitals, from medical examiners. That's for opioid overdoses or treatment or whatnot. The whole point of this is to have long-term care where we are connecting people then once they have had some sort of incident where they have overdosed. Or just willingly, like, hopefully that's the best case scenario, walk in to receive treatment. But however they end up at us, we're connecting them to substance use, like, services. Yeah.
Thank you. Any additional questions, Councilmember Allen? Okay. Any additional questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? Motion carries 9 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. The next item that is not on consent is RS 2024-719, Porterfield Gap, Walsh, and others approves a child and adult care food program grant application from the Tennessee Department of Human Services to the Metropolitan Parks and Recreation Department to provide nutritious meals and snacks for children attending after-school programs at 15 community centers. Can I get a motion? Is there a second? It's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? Motion carries 9 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. The next item is RS 2024-721, Porterfield Evans Walsh and Gad accepts a grant from the Tennessee Emergency Management Agency to the Office of Emergency Management to provide public assistance for damage caused by severe storms during December 22nd through 27th, 2022. Can I get a motion? Is there a second? It's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Cortez, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. This question is for the administration or the Office of Emergency Management. I noticed the start date is backdated retroactively. Are these people will they just be getting relief now, or did Metro advance any funds in this instance? How is that set up?
Thank you so very much. I see Mary Jo Wiggins from Finance coming up, and it looks like Mark Young from Fire may also be making his way up. So we'll start with Mary Jo, and then Mark, if you want to be recognized, we'll recognize you next. If you could introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Mary Jo Wiggins, Finance. I do work with Drusilla Martin, who's managing the process with FEMA on this particular response, but all of our FEMA responses are actually reimbursement to the city for our expenses incurred. So these aren't, your question said they, they're not individual recipients. So the individual recipients that were impacted have other means of disaster relief, but these are actually all expenses that the city incurred. And so we are getting reimbursed back to the date of the event.
That's great. I'm glad I asked. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Did you have anything you wanted to add, Mr. Young? If so, if you could introduce yourself.
No, Mary Jo did perfect. The only thing I could add was like some of the structures, for example, the municipal auditorium that received some reimbursement for their damage, parks, water department, library, stuff like that.
Thank you so very much. Councilmember Cortez, did you have any additional questions, comments?
No, Chair. Thank you.
All right. All right. Are there any other questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? Motion carries 9 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. The next item is RS 2024-724, Porterfield Parker authorizes the Metropolitan Government to enter into agreements with the City of Belmead, the City of Brentwood, the City of Goodlettsville, the City of Laverne, the City of Millersville, the City of Ridgetop, and the White House Utility District for the acceptance and treatment by the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County of sewage flow from their individual and separate sewage collection systems. Can I get a motion? Is there a second? It's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? Motion carries 9 in favor, 0 against. The next item on second reading, we have BL 2024-476 Porterfield amends Chapter 2.112 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws regarding the membership of the Metropolitan Nashville Arts Commission and the process for approving the criteria for awarding funds. Can I get a motion? Is there a second? It has been moved and properly seconded. I will go ahead and give an update on where what we discussed at our meeting, and then we can go ahead and continue the conversation here. So we did have a special call meeting to discuss where we were on what the administration had been looking at with boards and commissions. We also discussed this particular legislation and the pathway that we thought would be best going forward. I believe it may have been Council Lady Allen, and correct me if I'm wrong, it was either Council Lady Allen or Councilwoman Sora, but there was a request to the administration about looking at which boards and commissions they believe would be helpful to have a council member to serve on. The administration did state that they would look into that and report that back to the council. I'm looking at you, Mr. Rosenberg. Did you have anything you want to add to that? Okay, Mr. Rosenberg, I'll acknowledge you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, that was the instruction that we took, and our hope is to get that meeting scheduled over the coming weeks. And then I think the intent is for a special council committee to then evaluate that and share their feedback on whether that's the way to go or something a little bit different.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rosenberg. So we did have that conversation about looking at overall which boards and commissions looked as though they were going to benefit from having a council member to serve on them. We also discussed would it make sense to put a council member on this board or commission now, knowing that in maybe a couple of weeks or a couple of months, there may be something coming up that we would have to vote on and then determine which boards and commissions it would make sense to be on. So there will be a possibility that the council member could be removed. So there was conversation about if we thought that would it be more disruptive to do it that way or what made sense, and what the committee kind of landed on, and we did not take any votes, so this was just through discussion, but what the committee landed on was waiting to see which boards and commissions were determined that it would be beneficial to have an additional council member on. In the meantime, moving forward with the legislation, I know Councilwoman Soror did have an amendment. There was some discussion about the looking at if it made sense to have 3 readings when we're looking at the criteria changing, and one concern was about delaying, about that being an additional delay. So Councilwoman Soror has an amendment that will ask someone to move today, and in her amendment, it would highlight in the resolution, it would keep it as a resolution, but it would highlight if there were any changes that were made. So the body would be notified that a change was made in the criteria, and we could take a closer look and then determine at that point in time if we needed to do a deferral to look closer, but it wouldn't tie us to the 3 readings. So I did want to kind of give an overview of like what we discussed in that meeting. And with that, is there any additional discussion or would anyone like to be acknowledged? All right, seeing none, can we get, would someone like to move Councilmember Soror's amendment? Council Lady Allen, you're recognized.
Thank you. I'd like to move the amendment that requires that the resolution include information about the criteria changing.
Thank you. Is there a second? It's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? Motion carries 9 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. Is there any additional discussion? Council Lady Stiles, you're recognized.
So will we have a chance to discuss the substitute that currently exists in the bill in its current form?
If a committee member would like to move the substitute, we can discuss it. Council Lady Allen.
I'll move it for the purpose of discussion.
Okay, is there a second? It has been moved and properly seconded. Would anyone like to discuss the substitute? Council Lady Stiles, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair, and I appreciate that you held a meeting to discuss the work of the board and commission work group. I think the work that they're doing is important. I think Mr. Rosenberg's statement of it's going to take weeks before we come back and we hear about what committees are being looked at, it still slows down the process and the need that still exists. I don't think people that have been placed on committees this year or in last year are suddenly going to be removed from committees. We should not take this moment to hinder work that needs to be done off of work that is still in process. We don't know that this information is going to come back by the end of this year. There are several things going on at Metro Arts right now in terms of the grant process and figuring out details about the application process. I've still heard several questions about how things are going and advice that they're receiving. And I still believe that a council member at this moment would make sense to be placed on this commission. And if we come up with a new policy, I don't think that necessarily means that we have to rescind the appointment of someone. They can still serve. Any modification that needs to be made could potentially be made later. So I still struggle with the idea that we have to wait and wait and wait. We've been deferring this for months now. I think we can still have specially called meetings, but the legislation itself can move forward. And I would appreciate if people would consider voting for approval of the substitute of this bill so that that work can continue.
Thank you, Councilmember Stiles. Director Darby, can you clarify what we discussed in the committee? If the recommendation comes back and there are certain committees that it is recommended that a council member serves on and the body votes on it as a whole, and if the body votes that it didn't make sense to have an arts commissioner on there, could you clarify would that person then be removed?
Well, it would depend on how the legislation was drafted, but presumably if we had legislation that put a council member onto a commission and later had subsequent legislation that said council member shall not serve on that commission, then that council member would presumably be removed.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other discussion on the substitute? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay? Any abstentions or anyone not voting? Let's try this again. Let's raise hands. Anyone in favor of the substitute? Okay. Anyone voting against the substitute? 1, 2. Okay. Any abstentions? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What you doing? Abstaining, 7. Substitute fails, 0 in favor, 2 against, and 7 not voting. So now the Bill 2024-476 as amended with Councilwoman Sorora's amendment. Can I get a motion? Is there a second? Any additional discussion on the bill as amended? Seeing none, all those in favor, aye. Opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? Motion carries 9 in favor, 0 against, 8 in favor, 0 against, and 0 not voting. The next item we have is nothing, just kidding. That is the end of the agenda. Thank you so much for your time. Meeting adjourned.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.